Olá! Our class today is about the imperfect subjunctive, el imperfecto de subjuntivo. The imperfect subjunctive is required in the same context as the present subjunctive. The only difference is that the verb in the main clause is in a past tense rather than in a present or future tense. Let's see these two examples. Let's compare one sentence in the present and then present subjunctive and something that was in the past, and then you need to use the imperfect subjunctive. La madre quiere que su hijo vaya a la universidad. So the mother wants, present tense, that her son goes to the university. Now look at this other one in the past. La madre quería, the mom wanted, que su hijo fuera, that her son went to the university. So that's the difference. How do we form the imperfect subjunctive? Well, you start with the third person plural, aron, hieron, form of the verb in the predatory tense. For example, hablaron, vendieron, escribieron. If you start with the third person plural and you know your predatory verbs, there are no irregular forms. Remember, that is, there is no verb that doesn't follow the rule. So after that, you're going to drop the ron ending, and that you have your stem, and you're going to add the following endings for all three conjugations: ra, ras, ra, ramos, rais, ran. For example, hablar. Hablara, hablaras, hablara, habláramos, hablarais, hablaran. Vender, vendiera, vendieras, vendiera, vendiéramos, vendierais, vendieran. Escribir, escribiera, escribieras, escribiera, escribiéramos, escribierais, escribieran. Note that ER and IR forms are identical. Note also that first and third person singular forms are the same, and all of nosotros forms must carry a written accent. Don't forget your accents. So you go habláramos, accent mark, vendiéramos, accent mark, escribiéramos, accent mark. Well, in other countries like Spain, we have alternative forms. Let's see. Hablar, instead of hablara, you could say hablase, hablases, hablase, hablásemos, hablaseis, hablasen. Vender, vendiese, vendieses, vendiese, vendiésemos, vendieseis, vendiesen. Escribir, escribiese, escribieses, escribiese, escribiésemos, escribieseis, escribiesen. Everything that applies to the ra forms applies also to the se forms. However, the later are more literary and are more used often in Spain than elsewhere. The following chart shows the imperfect subjunctive forms of some common regular and irregular verbs. Tomar, tomara, beber, bebiera, escribir, escribiera, creer, creyera, decir, dijera, estar, estuviera, haber, hubiera, ir, fuera. Leer, leyera. So as you can see, you always return to the predatory, so you can find your stem, drop the ron in the ellos, ellas, ustedes form, and then you add the ra. Poder, pudiera, poner, pusiera, querer, quisiera, saber, supiera, ser, fuera, tener, tuviera, traer, trajera, venir, viniera. Let's see some more uses of the imperfect subjunctive. Well, the basic form is that the same principles that are applied in the present to determine whether to use the subjunctive or the indicative are also used in the past. If the main clause expresses cause or prevention, personal bias or emotion, falseness or unreality, the subjunctive is used in the subordinate clause. The past subjunctive is also always used after the following phrases and a few other similar ones, just as with the present subjunctive. En caso de que, sin que, con tal de que, antes de que, para que, a menos que. The tense of the verb in the main clause normally determines whether to use the present or imperfect subjunctive in the subordinate clause. If the verb in the main clause is in the present, future, or present perfect, the present subjunctive is used in the subordinate clause. But if the verb in the main clause is in the preterite, imperfect, conditional, or pluperfect, the imperfect subjunctive is used in the subordinate clause. Let's see some examples with verbs in the main clause in the present, future, or present perfect. Insisto en que Tomás me ayude. So here, because the main clause has a verb in the present tense, you need to use the present perfect in your subordinate clause. Present, present. Insistiré en que Tomás me ayude. The second example, you have a verb in the future in the main clause and a verb in the present subjunctive in the subordinate clause. Finally, we have a verb in the present perfect, he insistido en que Tomás me ayude, and again, we have a verb in the present subjunctive in the subordinate clause. Now let's see examples with the main verb clauses having the preterite, imperfect, conditional, or pluperfect, and then you have to have the imperfect subjunctive in the subordinate clause. Insistí en que Tomás me ayudara. So preterite, imperfect. Insistía en que Tomás me ayudara. Imperfect, imperfect. Insistiría en que Tomás me ayudara. Conditional, imperfect. Había insistido en que Tomás me ayudara. Pluperfect, imperfect. Remember, the imperfect subjunctive is required under the same conditions as the present subjunctive. However, the imperfect subjunctive is used to refer to events that were incomplete in relation to a past event. Compare the sentence. El reportero dudaba que controlaran el incendio. Past tense, imperfect subjunctive. Los televidentes pidieron que hubiera más programas serios. So, preterite, again, imperfect subjunctive. Remember we learned ojalá and the present subjunctive when you wish for something to happen in the future? Well, we also use ojalá in the imperfect subjunctive, but with a wish that was not possible, okay? For example, ojalá que el patrocinador seleccionara mi guión. Here, I'm wishing that he would choose my script, but it's something that is not probable. Ojalá que no cancelaran mi serie favorita. I wish they wouldn't cancel my favorite series. Here, you are wishing for something that will not happen, okay? So there is no hope in this. They will cancel, but you are just wishing, I hope they wouldn't cancel it, but they will. Use the imperfect subjunctive with hypothetical statements about contrary to fact present situations. In such statements, the imperfect subjunctive always appears in the see if clause. The conditional appears in the result clause, expressing what would happen if the premise in the see clause were factual. For example, si tuviera mucho dinero, if I had a lot of money, which is something I don't, iría a Brasil a cada 6 meses. I would go to Brazil every 6 months. Now compare to this other sentence. Si tengo dinero, if I have money, so in this situation there is a possibility, iré a Brasil el verano. I will go to Brazil in the summer. So here I'm talking about a hypothetical situation, something that is pretty much contrary to fact. Okay, I don't have a lot of money, but if I did, I would go to Brazil every month actually. Use the imperfect subjunctive with como si, as if, to make hypothetical statements. Él habla como si supiera mucho sobre pintura. So he talks as if he knew. He doesn't, but as if he knew a lot about painting. La chica se viste como si fuera una reina. The girl dresses herself as if she were a queen. A common use of the imperfect subjunctive is to make polite requests or statements. In such cases, the form of the verbs querer, poder, and deber are used. Let's see. Quisiera leer los anuncios clasificados. ¿Pudieras prestarme la sección deportiva? Debiéramos ir al concurso. So these are very polite ways to request or to make a statement. Well, I hope that was helpful. Make sure you review this video if you need. Also, go over your notes and ask me questions in class if you have. Gracias.